podcast. I am Dr. Kyla Prusak, principal at Minett Elementary, and I'm excited to share with you the voices of real educators who are living this work. When I think about the greatness that is happening every day in schools all over the world, I feel compelled to do a small part in helping others understand the many facets of the work we do. We hope our listeners will be able to gain an inside look as we pull back the curtain. Welcome, Minett podcast listeners. I am your host, Dr. Kyla Prusak, and today we have a fascinating guest joining us on the show. She is a trailblazer in the education sector, making significant strides in supporting emergent bilingual students. So please join me in welcoming Mrs. Jordan Greer.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's so good to see you, Jordan. I don't know if we'll just go ahead and jump in. We want to make sure our listeners know you and I go way back.
Yes, we do.
Way back to the teaching and principal days at Robertson Elementary School.
We sure do. And a lot of my success in this role and the fact that I'm even working for this department is thanks to you.
Oh, well, and even further back to the old Primrose preschool at Griffin Park.
That's right. Our kids were good buddies back in the day.
Yep. So Jordan is our ESL instructional facilitator in the Frisco ISD. Jordan, just thank you so much for being here. And before we dive into your role and really pulling back the curtain on what you do on a daily basis and how you support our district, tell us a little bit of your background and your journey in education and how you found yourself in the position of an ESL instructional facilitator.
Yeah, so I went to Texas A&M, Whoop, and got my bachelor's in education and took some ESL classes there. And then I started teaching in my hometown in Farmers Branch, and there I was a teacher in their dual language program. So that's where I got a lot of my experience working with emergent bilingual students. Then my family moved to Frisco, and so I started working at Smith Elementary and then moved to Robertson Elementary, which is where Kyla and my paths crossed. And I'm so thankful they did, because I really feel like under her leadership, I developed as a leader, and she is the one who encouraged me to apply for the language coach role, which was new in Frisco at the time. Yes. So that was a risk, but it has sure paid off. And thanks to her encouragement with that, got that job and enjoyed being a language coach at Nichols and McSpedden. And then again, with her encouragement, applied for this ESL facilitator role, and she supported me with that process as well. So it's my third year as an ESL facilitator with Frisco.
Awesome. I love that you shared all of your campuses when every time we have guests, especially who have had lots of different roles in the district, now being at Central Admin, I always want to make sure that they share all those, because we are one big connected web and family here across the district. And so it's always fun to hear. I had forgot that you served at Smith Elementary. So that's very exciting. Well, some of our listeners might not really understand what is your role. So talk to us about, like, what do you do on a daily basis? What are your big goals? What role do you play in supporting campuses, instructional coaches, language coaches, all the things?
All right. So yeah, as an ESL facilitator, I'm on a team of 4, and we split up all of the pre-K through 12th grade campuses. So that has been a big learning curve. Most of my experience being in elementary, but we're supporting at the elementary, middle, and high school level. And we do that in hopes of making sure that EBs have a streamlined approach as they go through all the grade levels. So as far as supporting campuses, I meet with the different campuses that I support. We can set up one-on-ones to help the language coaches and ESL leaders best support their campuses. We host PDs for teachers and for the language coaches, and we also get to meet with assistant principals and principals sometimes as well. So we wear a lot of hats. But our biggest goal being that we are advocating for and supporting our emergent bilingual students so that they can grow in their English language development.
What is your favorite part of your job?
I really do love working with adult learners, I have realized in this job. And so I really do I take a lead for our team in training all of our new hire language coaches. And so being a language coach myself, I remember what that felt like and what's kind of needed and correct pacing for all of that. And so I really do enjoy every month we have a meeting with our new language coaches to support them. We know they need a little bit more learning than our veterans do.
Absolutely.
And I think that's really built a great culture in our department where even our new people feel supported and appreciated.
I love that. It makes me think about when we interview new teachers at the campus level, and it's their turn to ask questions, and inevitably there's always that question of how do you support first year teachers? And what is so unique about Frisco ISD is, and I tell this, like, no matter what role you're in, the support is so comprehensive. It is always there. And when I think about you and your role, one of the things that stands out is, me walking around the corner and seeing you with your chair pulled up to our language coach's desk, Mrs. Simpson, and we've had her on the podcast. And just her first year, I would come and I would see you just side by side in the work, like getting to know our kids, looking at our data, looking at their needs, at what they need from our teachers and how she can support that. So that is definitely something that stands out in the work that you do.
Well, thank you. And I'll just give a nod. One of my teammates always encourages us that we can't coach our people from our cubes at the admin building, that the best way to support is to come right alongside them. So thanks for noticing that.
That's awesome. So obviously your commitment to supporting emergent bilinguals and our language coaches is truly inspiring. A few episodes ago, we talked to our technology facilitator, and she really talked about this whole new idea of coaching triads on campuses. So tell us a little bit about what that entails from your perspective and how that impacts our emergent bilingual students.
I probably could have said that this is another favorite part of my role, is the coach collab that Kirsten and I have worked on, as well as Katie Stafford. When I was a language coach, I worked very closely with my DLC and IC, and I found a lot of success, and I think our teachers seeing us as a team was very important. And so when I moved to this role, I wanted to see what that could look like at the district level. And so we have started a committee, kind of our coach collab committee, where each of the departments that are supporting the coaches are working together to streamline communication and really trying to help the coaches work as a team. Sometimes these coaching roles, you're the only coach on your campus, and that can start feeling a little isolating, or you're hoping you're doing the right thing, but you don't quite know. And so when you're in the classroom, you have your grade level team to bounce ideas off of. And so I thought it was really important and powerful to have the coaches really identify as a team so that they can move together and support teachers. And also, I think sometimes if the coaches are not working as a team, sometimes teachers are getting repetitive things, or all of third grade is getting talked to by all of the coaches. And so the more the coaches are collaborating and keeping all of that in mind, I think it really does help teachers, and then obviously affects how students are learning.
I know our coaches, and I know it's not about the coaches always, right? It's ultimately about how does this impact student learning, but our coaches get so excited when they have their coaching triad meetings.
Yes.
They'll say like, oh, I have my digital learning coach meeting, or I have my language coach meeting, but then it's just like, oh, just a normal meeting like we all go to, but they are like jumping up and down when the next day is the meeting that they all get to go together. So it really does, it's making an impact.
That's
on our
awesome.
coaches.
And I love to hear that. And I think that Minett sets a great example of what we want the coach triad to look like. I know how supportive they are of each other, and I'm sure that the teachers can see that and know the value of that as well.
Yeah. Very lucky. We have a great group of ladies representing in that role. So, something that I think is very interesting for all of us and for our listeners in particular is we know that Frisco ISD is a destination district. People come from all over the world. They're constantly moving. We had new students this week that came and that are, just getting to the country and just starting their journey of learning our language. So what would you say is is a challenge when you think about, all of the different types of language, or all of just the sheer number of students we have, whatever it is. What would you say is a challenge in your role?
Yeah, so like you said, we're seeing exponential growth in our EB population right now. We're now serving over 8,600 students that are in our EB program. It is a place that families want to come to, and we're proud of that. One challenge we do have, a lot of our Frisco ISD teachers are used to having emergent bilinguals, but often they've been at a higher proficiency level. But we are seeing an influx, like you mentioned, of newcomer students that are brand new to the country. And so that can pose a challenge when teachers are trying to pour in and teach them things, and they're just not quite ready to take all that knowledge in. And so we've done a lot of work of just kind of making sure we have an asset-based mindset for serving our EB population, focusing on what they can do, not what they can't do yet. And sometimes, it's uncomfortable for teachers to not be able to communicate with their students, and they want to teach them all the things. And so we've done a lot of work with our language coaches of helping them know how they can best support EBs, and then also just telling their teachers that the best thing they can do is create a safe, loving environment where kids want to come to school, because that has to be in place first. And then we know students who are multilingual, their brains are better, and they are going to be perfectly fine, but just kind of that initial transition time is a little challenging. So just helping our teachers to understand that they are doing enough, and that they, the kids are going to be fine, and that it's actually a privilege to be on this journey with them as they're becoming bilingual students or multilingual students.
Yeah. I love that. I have to tell the story. We were talking yesterday, we were meeting with our coaching triad, and talking about, what are the supports we have in place for these new students on our campus that just got here this morning, and how is their morning going, and how are the parents, and all of that stuff. And I always have to tell this story when my daughter, who's a current fourth grader, when she was a first grader at Robertson, it was Miss Sherry Procker's first grade class, and we got new student siblings from Japan. And so when she came home that day, I said, tell me about, your new friend in your class. And I said, just make sure that you're welcoming. Again, you're having that safe environment, like you're smiling. And I was like, because it's got to be pretty scary for him. Like, he's in a new country, and, you really can't communicate with him yet. And she said, Mom, we communicated with him all day. You just put it in Google Translate and it shows him what my teacher's saying. And I was like, okay. So again, it's like those moments of, we think like as adults, we think about what it was like when we were in school, or like if we did immigrate here, like, okay, what was that like? But now, like, the resources that you all provide teachers, and the training, and just that, like, access to those resources on a dime, it's just so cool. And I would say too, one of the big things for parents who are listening, that family, they reached out, they were from Japan, and they said, are there any other families, do you happen to know any other families at Robertson from Japan? And so I reached out to, we had another family that had recently moved from Japan. And so I just called the parents and said, would you be willing to let me share your contact information? And so ask that, parents, because they became friends. We would see them all like up on the playground on the weekends playing together. And so again, you want that community, and it just helps you build that community just from the start. So that's definitely a great thing that I don't know if parents know, like, ask your campus principal.
Absolutely.
It doesn't hurt. Okay, so switching gears just a little bit, because there are a lot of teachers that listen to our podcast, and it's the time of year where some of our teachers, our classroom teachers, are starting to think like, would I maybe want to like take that next step and maybe consider being a language coach for the district, or like taking that next step to further support emergent bilingual students. So like, what advice would you give to teachers who may be starting to think about that avenue?
Yeah, we, like you said, it's that time of year. We are actually this week hosting a coach recruitment event for teachers to come learn more about all of the coaching roles. But as far as becoming a language coach, I think the first step, like we just kind of mentioned, is truly committing to an asset-based mindset for EB students. Coming in with the mindset that you're getting to go on a journey with families who were coming here wanting to have an amazing life. And so it truly is a privilege and really feels like powerful work that we get to be a part of. If you're interested in being a language coach, I do recommend teaming up with your language coach. A lot of ours will set up a meeting just to talk about it, or even shadow for a little bit and just see what a day in the life of is like. Also, just committing to having a language-rich classroom yourself, thinking about how you're supporting emergent bilinguals. Also, it's a great way to be a part of the leadership staff. And so just thinking about, I would say, just start thinking about what kind of a leader you would want to be on a campus and what strengths you have and what you could add, how you could add value to a leadership team on your campus.
I love that. And, a lot of times teachers will say, I'm going to miss the kids, and I say the coaching role, like you're still so in it with kids, but yes. You also, like, the teachers become your students, and there's nothing better than I've watched language coaches when you do get a newcomer and a teacher's eyes are just like, oh, I want to be able to support them, and I want to be able to give them everything they need and to be able to walk alongside them. There's nothing better.
It's the best. And one thing I'll say that you actually taught me when I was wanting to do this role, it is hard to walk away from the kids. And I do think the language coach role specifically, you do get to actually still have a lot of face time with kids. But something you told me that has always resonated is when you move into a coaching role, as a teacher, you have a lot of influence with maybe 20 kids in your class. And as a coach, you start having influence on the whole campus. And so just thinking that way and how exciting that is, just thinking about the ripple effect getting even larger. If you've been doing amazing things in your class, it's quite a privilege to get to expand that and help other teachers just learn to be the best teacher that they can be.
That's awesome. Okay, Jordan, well, I'm going to throw you a curveball, and I have worked with you for long enough. Like when you talk about type A personality, it is like capital A, bold,
a little bit,
yellow highlight, all the things. And that's what I love about you, because I may or may not be very similar. So we end each of our podcast episodes with a game, and we like to surprise our guests. We don't give you any heads up.
I've heard this in the ones I've listened to.
Yes. So today we are actually going to play Global Word Hunt.
Okay.
Here's how it works. I will give you a word from another language, and you will try to guess what it means. Simple, right?
We'll see.
Yeah. And listeners, feel free to play along at home and see if you can beat Jordan at this wonderful game. So let's jump right in, and I hope that I pronounced them all correct. So please don't hold it against me if I don't. So first word, we'll start easy. Ciao.
I believe that's Italian.
And it means?
Hello or goodbye, right?
Yes. Wow. Yes. Okay. Now this one, this one will be real easy. Amigo.
Say it one more time.
Amigo.
Amigo. That's your friends.
Yep.
Amigo if you're a boy, and amiga if it's a girl.
Yes.
Bonus points.
From what country?
Mexico. Or any of our Spanish-speaking countries.
There you go. Yes. Any of them. Yes. Okay. Let's try this one. Croissant.
One that I love to enjoy. I'm going to go with France.
Yeah.
Or the French language. It's a delicious buttery pastry.
There you go. I was looking for delicious pastry, but you added in buttery. Yeah. Added in those adjective words. Okay, how about kimono?
Kimono is from Japan. That's beautiful clothing that they wear, usually bright colored and has floral on it, and just beautiful.
Awesome. This is going to turn into a writing lesson. You're going back to your fourth grade writing lesson days. Okay, last one, safari.
I believe safaris happen in African countries where you get to see the amazing animals that reside in that beautiful country.
That's awesome. An expedition to observe wildlife. I love it. Way to go. So great job. Of course, like always, you aced anything that comes your way. So thank you so much, Jordan, for joining us today and for the incredible work you do in Frisco ISD. And to our Minett podcast listeners, thank you for tuning in. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories in education. Until next time, this is Jordan Greer and Kyla Prusak signing off. If you are hearing this message, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We hope you enjoyed this new episode, and if you did, please leave us a like on YouTube and be sure to hit subscribe. Don't forget to follow us